and welcome to LIP's podcast with Nakia. I am joined with a very impressive a young man who's a motivational speaker and author of his first book that he wrote at the age of 15. He's an entrepreneur for Love Yaself clothing line. He also has been a keynote speaker for elementary, middle, and high schools. While he traveled different cities, he's also here serving his community here in Atlanta. He's been featured on NBA, on TNT, speaking to Shaquille O'Neal, Candace Parker, and I am so grateful to have you here. Welcome, Marquis.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Nakia. That was a great intro too. Thank you.
Good. So what did I miss? Tell us, who is Marquis?
So I'll take you back to really where it all started from me. My name is Marquis Hill, Marquis James Hill, and I started like with speaking in middle school. And like for me, my first ever like passion, my first dream was basketball. Like that's what I dedicated all of my time and effort to. Like it really started for me when I was 10 years old. Like I was in Illinois at the time, Oak Park, Illinois, where I grew up. And I was sitting on my grandma's couch, just watching Chicago Bulls and Derrick Rose. And Derrick Rose, like that was my favorite basketball player. And I knew, after watching him play, I was like, this is what I want to do. Like basketball, this is going to be my life. And, me and my dad, like we was working at this dream every single day. Like we used to be in the alley, getting up shots every single day. When we ended up moving to Georgia, when I was going into my 6th grade year, I remember in middle school being up at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. in the morning, just like chasing this dream every single day of going to the NBA. And it was in like the summer of my 8th grade year. I was outside playing basketball, just another day. Like I would always train regardless of how hot it was outside, how cold it was, just another day outside training. And I remember I went to make a move and I felt this like really sharp pain in my chest. And this was like my first time like ever feeling it to this extent, this capacity. And I remember I ran into the house. I was like, "Mom, like I just felt this sharp pain in my chest. Can we go to the doctor and just see what this is about?" And the first doctor we ended up going to, he couldn't figure out what was going on with my chest. Like he didn't know what was happening. So he recommended I go to a cardiologist. So we had like booked the doctor's appointment. We went into the cardiologist's office, and like the doctor, he came in and like took some X-rays of like my chest and my heart. And when he came back, he said like they found that I had a heart murmur. And basically like there's levels to heart murmurs. Like some are very small, very minor. Like it doesn't really affect the athlete or the person. But some are to a larger extent. And like I had some small holes in my heart that was like allowing blood to like leak the place it didn't need to go.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was like in that the doctor told me I had to take 8 weeks off. Like I had to take an 8-week off recovery. And he said if the healing process doesn't go right, because there's not really a medication or anything you can get for that, he was like, you won't be able to play basketball at the level you want to. Like you can't train at the level you're training at because you'll end up like really hurt. Like it gets to the level like sometimes people will pass out and pass away like because of that. So I had to take that time off, and at first I was like really like heartbroken because like basketball, this is my everyday. This is like my identity.
Right.
Like what I find myself in. I hoop. I work hard every day. I stay in the gym, and since that was taken away from me, like it really felt like my dream was being, snatched away from me at the time. But it was like really during that time where I think I found my voice. Like every team I ever played on in elementary school, when I played football, in basketball, when I played basketball, every team I played on, I was always like the captain, the leader, the person, that was going to bring the team together using my voice. And I never really looked at it, from that perspective. But like since I was going through a really hard time in my life, like going through that heart murmur, I really just wanted to help another person that may be going through a hard time in their life. And I started making these daily motivational videos on Instagram and on TikTok, just posting them every day, whatever was on my mind that day. And, for a long time, like it wasn't any recognition I was really coming from it. It was, barely any people watching the videos, but I found a real passion in it. And I remember like I had some videos that ended up going viral on TikTok. Like one of my videos did over 1.5 million views on TikTok. Yeah, it went crazy. And I was just talking about like my why, like why I get up every single day, why I work so hard. And I was talking about, just my parents and my little brother and, understanding why you go so hard for your dreams. And that video ended up reaching so many people.
Wow.
And from there, the videos, it was like a trickle effect. Like all the videos that people hadn't seen, people started to see it. Like I started to gain a huge community on TikTok with people just coming to me for that daily motivation. And of course, it trickled into Instagram. And now, I'm blessed and honored to not only be able to make an impact on social media through my videos, but I was able to, of course, be featured on TNT, like you mentioned. And after that, blew it up even more, and churches began to call me to come speak. There's a pastor in North Carolina, Pastor Scovens. He gave me one of my first opportunities to come and speak at his church, and like that was a beautiful experience. Like being able to share how God impacted me in my journey, and just sharing my story on of perseverance, and really finding your passion and your purpose outside of what you think your plan may be. Right, like God may have a different plan for you, and taking that trip to North Carolina and doing that. After that, it was like speaking engagement after speaking engagement started to pour in, and I just started to see like, man, God had a much bigger plan for me than just playing on that basketball court. And I'm grateful now to be able to speak, all around the United States, like to different schools and organizations, because like speaking to the youth in my generation, it's like something I'm very passionate about. And if I can just be a positive voice, for my generation, that's really what I want to do. If I impact one person, I impact 1 million. Like I just want to be able to be that positive voice for my generation. So that's really where it started when it came to motivational speaking, and then publishing my book at 15. Yes, ma'am.
How old were you when this happened with your heart? How old were you?
So I was 15 at the time.
You was 15 at the time.
Yes, ma'am.
And when did you start making your motivational videos?
So I started making my motivational videos. I'll give you some backstory on those too. So I had made this is like when I was still like hooping. I had made like some positive videos just on my Instagram, really talking about working hard. Because like I said, I was a grinder. Like this is what I did.
Right.
So I made some like positive videos on my Instagram, just like me telling about like working hard. I'll post videos of me playing basketball, but like at the time, that wasn't my focus. Like I wasn't looking at it from the perspective like I'm a motivational speaker. I'm just on Instagram like, yo, if you got a dream, go out there and chase it. I'm a young kid out here chasing my dream of going to the NBA. And I made a few then, and I remember like some of my classmates that ended up showing some of my teachers around school, and some of them was being funny, right? So it wasn't all love. Some of it was being funny, but some of my teachers ended up talking to our principal, and they wanted me to give like the speech for 8th grade day. And like that was like my first ever like time on stage, and that was hilarious.
Was it?
When I go back and look at like my stage presence and how I was up there, I was so nervous. I remember the night before, I was writing out my entire speech on this little lined piece of paper, and I remember I brought that piece of paper with me on that stage, and I literally had my head down
the whole time.
Look, I had my head down the whole time looking at this paper. I would look up a little bit, and I was stumbling over my words. It was a rough experience to watch. Right? One of my friends was like, "Take your time, bro." I was like, "Man, I'm a bit nervous." But yeah, like that's really where when I started like making my motivational videos after I was diagnosed with that heart murmur, I really chose like to go all in on making these videos. And like that's really when it started though. And I got a video, I can definitely like send it to you afterwards. I share a little bit about, like life throwing you a curveball. And this was after like my diagnosis, a couple of days after. I was speaking on, just sometimes life will throw you a curveball, and you can either choose to strike out, or you can choose to, change the way you about to change your position, right? Like put yourself in position to, instead of it being a setback, like really put in the position to knock it out the park. So after that, that's when I really chose to go all in on like making those motivational videos.
That is so inspiring. I have a quote that you said, "It's a good day to be great. Let's go watch the impact we make." Yep. I love that. I kind of needed to say that for myself.
Yeah, yes,
today. I love that. Keep moving forward. God is by your side. Focus on the present. Embrace yourself. Yes, I love all that. And talk to me about your clothing line, Love Yaself. Where did that come up from? How did you do that?
So Love Yaself, interesting story. So I had my first ever brand, and like people will be able to go back and like and see this on my social media. Somebody got to post somewhere.
Right.
But in middle school, I had a brand called Jeans Pilot Academy, and basically, just to give you some backstory on that brand, I started that because I'm like writing my own cartoon series, and it's all about like these kids that are saving the world using their jeans ability. So in 8th grade, like all my friends could tell you, I was selling headbands in school, and had the whole 8th grade rocking these jeans headbands, right? So the entrepreneurship, like it was kind of in me early in terms of just like through clothing, spreading that positive message. And for me with Jeans Pilot Academy, it really wasn't for the clothing at that point. It was really for me to be able to pour all that money into my cartoon, right? So like that's really where that started. But I ended up, focusing much more on the cartoon side of that. And when it came to motivational speaking, like self love was something that was very huge for me, because in middle school, like I dealt with my own version, right, of a lack of self love and not prioritizing my mental health, not putting myself first. Like when it came to me and my friend group, I was the person that people would come to for advice, right? People would hit me up, asking me for advice, and I was constantly, pouring into others, constantly giving. And it was a lot of times I wasn't giving to myself. I wasn't, pouring into myself. And, like when it would come time for me to, be able to express how I would feel, it would feel like, no, I got to be the strong friend. And I really wasn't giving myself the space to, express that. And I give, a huge thanks to like my father for like creating that environment for me as well, for me to, be able to talk to him about, certain things, my mother as well. And so for me, that's really where like the self love, like the lack of self love, stem from. And I searched outside of myself a lot of the time in middle school for like validation, whether it was in relationships, whether it was in friendships. Like I was constantly trying to prove myself and trying to please other people. And I found myself losing who I was, trying to please somebody else and trying to impress somebody else. And it wasn't until I started to love me, like love Marquis for who he was, where like I no longer cared about what anybody else thought about me. And it was a certain type of freedom that came from that. And like that was one of the biggest messages I wanted to push, and I spoke on it so much when I go and speak to the youth, and when I make my motivational videos, and when it came to creating a brand around it. Like I wanted to be able to create something that spoke for itself. Like I feel like, of course, I can go on stage and speak, but I feel like everything that I represent, like what I wear, right, that plays a major role in everything I'm doing. So not only am I about to go on stage and speak, but you're gonna see, right, how I feel about what I'm wearing. And like that's my biggest goal with Love Yourself. Like with Love Yourself, I wanted to create a brand that just encouraged the person wearing it just to love themselves more every single day and to really prioritize their mental health. Because when you throw on Love Yourself, like it's bigger than just a piece. It's like a constant reminder to yourself to put you first today, right? To love you, to pour into you. And as long as you pour into yourself, then you'll be able to pour into others, right? And that's one of the biggest things I had to do as a speaker as well. Like when I took on this responsibility to be a positive voice, right? I couldn't shy away from the fact that people will, want advice from me constantly. I just had to focus more on, cool, let me make sure I'm taking care of Marquis. So when a person that may need some help or may need some advice, I can then be able to pour into them because I'm pouring into me. But that's really where Love Yourself started. Just all about, encouraging others to love themselves more each day.
I love that. And what I love most, Marquise, is that you realized that at such a young age to where you were able to grasp on it and make a difference and make a change within yourself, because loving yourself is so important. I actually did it. I poured so much, like you said, you poured so much into other people. I became a mom at a young age. I was in relationships, pouring into those relationships and not pouring into myself. And now that I am in a place where I am able to think clearly, think more clearly, I am pouring into myself. I am loving myself. I am have the confidence more to do what it is that I want to do. I am a believer of God, and He is love. And He also pours His love into everyone. And once I realized who He is, then I was able to know and love myself. So that's amazing.
Yes, ma'am.
You have 3 powerful lessons you learned on being an entrepreneur.
Yes, ma'am.
What are those lessons?
So being an entrepreneur, one of my first lessons that I know I had to learn early was to embrace rejection. That's one thing that I shied away from heavily, like when I first started with entrepreneurship. And to give you some backstory, like when I first started doing my pop-up shops for my brand, I had to get comfortable with me putting myself out there and people saying no. Like a lot of people, like at first I looked at no, it's like, man, that
rejection is
hurt,
tough.
right?
Yes.
And at first it made me like shy away from me putting myself out there more.
Yeah.
But I read this quote. It said, "Don't look at no as a lost opportunity.
Yes.
Look at it as a next opportunity."
Yes.
And like that's one way I just had to switch my perspective. Like every no I get, I'm one more no away from a yes. Like there's a yes coming, and it's just about you continuing to put yourself out there, continuing to fail until you succeed.
I love that.
And I would just say embracing rejection is definitely my first lesson. When you get comfortable with no and you can embrace no,
I love
the yeses will start to flow in.
And no's is God's protection. The rejection is God's protection.
Right.
That's how I take it.
Right.
He's just turning you into another direction.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I have to agree.
You have to embrace it.
You have to.
And what a lot of people don't understand as well, what I didn't understand when I first started, is sometimes people say no because they simply don't understand. Yeah. And if they say no and you stop, they'll never understand.
No.
But if they say no and they see you continuing to push towards that dream, continuing to push towards that goal, and bringing your vision to life, eventually they may come around and give you that yes that you're looking for.
That's inspiring to me with this podcast.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm sure I'm going to get some no's. I'm sure I'm going to get some rejections, but I have to keep going. I have to keep pushing. I have to keep motivating myself. But you're absolutely right.
Exactly. So embracing rejection.
Yes.
That's the first lesson.
That's the first one.
My second lesson would definitely be just trusting your process. Like one thing that I'm a heavy believer in is regardless of what the results look like, keep going. Because like that's one thing, it's so tough. And I understand when people, are like, man, this is hard. I get it. Like it's a constant battle every single day to continue doing what you're doing. Definitely when you're a business owner, definitely when you're doing something different, right? Like whether you're a speaker, whether you got a podcast, like whether you're an entrepreneur with your own business, it's a constant battle every single day with the world and with yourself, right? Like, am I doing enough? Am I doing this right? I'm not seeing the money coming in. I'm not seeing the views coming in. I'm not seeing anybody supporting me. And it's about trusting your process. Like every single day you take a step forward towards your dream, you one step closer to your breakthrough. And I think it's just about understanding that. Like I may not win today, but I'm making progress today. And what a lot of people need to understand, one thing I'm learning every single day, and like one thing I'm embracing, is this is greatness. And I was talking to you about that.
Yeah.
Like what you're doing every single day, the work, right? The small things, that's greatness.
Love that.
Not when you standing up on the stage and receiving a reward, not when you're, making millions of dollars from. It's about this right here. Like I always think about every time I'm outside selling my brand. This is greatness. Me putting myself out here, even on the days I'm tired, even on the days where I don't feel like, going out here and talking to like that's where you really build that character that's going to sustain you when you get to that level you want to get to. So like trusting your process, regardless of whether you're winning, you're losing, you're in a dry season, as long as you keep going, your breakthrough coming. So number one, embrace rejection. Number two, trust your process, and regardless of the results, keep going. And I would just say, like, my third biggest lesson would just be like to stay true to who you are. The only way entrepreneurship is gonna work for you is if you're staying true to you. I've seen people create businesses just because it's like, oh yeah, I've seen such and such do it, I want to do it, and that's great. But do it because it's something that you actually have a passion for. Like when people say, Marquis, I want to start a clothing brand, one thing I often ask is, well, what's your purpose behind it? Like, what's your story behind it? Why are you starting a brand? Not because I'm trying to discourage you or throw you off.
Right.
I just want you to be grounded in something because it has to be deeper than just making money. It has to be deeper than just, getting views on social media, going viral. It has to be deeper than that because when it's only about that, it's going to stop you once you don't see it. Right? But like for me, regardless if I get 0 sales this month, I get 100 sales this month, I know that I started my brand to encourage the next person to love themselves more. So I'm going to do everything I can every single day to fulfill that. And it's like, regardless of what the results look like, I'm going to keep going towards that. And, it's grounded in something that I struggle with myself. So it's like when I think about, how I would feel like if I was to give up on my dream, right? If I was to give up on my brand, it's like it may be a kid out there just like me that's trying to find validation to other people, that needs to hear my story, or that needs this constant reminder every single day to love themselves. And it's like, well, man, if I give up, then that kid doesn't have, right?
Exactly.
And like that's one way I look at it too. But you have to be authentic and it has to be true to who you are, because that's the only way your business or whatever you're doing, whatever your endeavor is, that's the only way it's going to succeed. And when it's true to who you are, I'm telling you, your crowd, your tribe, your people go find you. And when they do and you're blowing up, you're going to be able to sustain it because it's something that you're truly about, because it's in you, right? It's bigger than just, you know, the materialistic side of things. So, yeah, number one, embrace rejection, trust your process. And then third, it's all about,
I love it. I love it. You also talk about 3 steps of dreaming.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me, what are those 3 steps?
So when it comes to dreaming, like the first biggest thing, right, is dreaming big, thinking bigger than what may be, right? Like the, of course, I could say I'm going to the NBA, right? Like, let me break it down. Of course, I could say I want to go to the NBA. But one thing that I encourage people to do is really visualize what it is that you'll be doing, what it is that you're doing daily, how it's going to feel when you put that jersey on, how you going to feel walking into the stadium, seeing crowds of people, right, screaming your name, you on the court, right, 3 seconds on the clock, how you feel taking that last shot. Like, so visualize is that very first step, visualizing and dreaming bigger than you ever have before. And my second step is writing it down. Like, you have to get very clear on, okay, cool, this is what I'm thinking in my head, this is what I got in my heart. Let me put it on a piece of paper so I can look at it every single day and remind myself of what it is I'm going to do, what it is I'm going to achieve. And then the third step, it's about that belief. Like, it's really about believing in it with every, you know, single cell in your body. Like, it's about you really internalizing it and letting it be something, regardless of what anybody else thinks, regardless of, you know, the opinions that anybody else has. You're so, you know, grounded in your dream. You believe in it so much, regardless of what the world is saying. You're blocking out the noise and you're believing in you. And that's the only way you're ever going to be able to do, you know, something that's great, something that's different, because people are always going to criticize. People will always try to find something wrong in what you're doing, try to, you know, pick at your dream, pick at what you're trying to pursue. They'll always try to do that. But when you believe in yourself, nobody can stop what you're doing. And I think, like, that's one thing that I try my best to do every single day, because, of course, I'm human. I get discouraged sometimes. But it's like, as long as I keep believing in me and I never stop, I can never lose. Like, I saw a quote the other day. It said, the only people that ever lose is the people who quit. As long as you don't quit, as long as you keep going, you'll
That's
never
like being
lose.
in the gym. Right. If you're trying to work out, you're trying to get the body that you want. If you quit, you're never going to get the body. You have to be consistent with it.
Right.
So
if you go to a gym 100 days straight, of course that's wild, because you gotta take your days to rest. But you go 100 straight days, I promise you go see some results at the end. But if you stop in that first 10 days,
I want to get better.
Hey, look, I'm right there with you though. I gotta get better too. I gotta get better at that too.
You talked about putting God first and walking in your purpose.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me, what does that mean to you?
For me, it really just means trusting God over your own plan. Like, and this is one thing I work on daily, because I wouldn't call myself impatient, but often I find myself rushing things. And trying to, you know, speed up my process sometimes. And sometimes, like, I'll think I'm ready for something, and God's, you know, holding it off, because He's like, not yet. Like you're not ready for it yet. And sometimes, like, my own pride and my own ego will, like, get in the way. I'm like, no, like, I'm ready for it. And it's like I'm trying to rush, right, what it is that God has for me. But it's like, God is going to make everything happen when it's supposed to happen.
Perfect timing.
Every time.
Perfect timing. Because I think that's our problem, is we put God in a box. We tell Him when we want it. We tell Him how we want it. We tell Him what we want. And He's like, So you have to put Him first. That's what Matthew 6:33 talks about. Seeking Him first.
Right.
And then you'll start to get what it is that you want. But you have to seek Him first. So
100%.
100%. 100%.
So, like, that's really, like, what it means to me. It's about trusting God's plans over my own. Like, there's a scripture, Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5-6, that like, I love. That's my favorite scripture. I got it on a little note card right next to my bed. Like, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. acknowledge him in all your ways, and
Yes.
he will make straight your path.
Yes.
And like that's one thing I always try my best to stay
Yes.
grounded in. Like I may
Yes.
not always understand why
Yes.
certain things are happening, but God doing it for a
He
reason.
is.
And
He is.
and it's not until you get to that other side you like, dang, that's
Yes.
why I had
That's
to
why
go through
I
that.
had to go through that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the adversity that I thought was breaking me was really
Right.
building me. And it's
Right.
like if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be able to handle this situation that's right in front of me,
Exactly.
or I wouldn't be able to inspire or encourage the person that's going through what I used to be going through.
Exactly.
So it's like really understanding that, just trusting God's
Yeah.
plan over your own.
Yeah, I believe that 100% because, like I said, we try to put God in a box. We try to do things that we want to do, and we're not putting Him first. It's like after something happens, and then we're like, okay, God, now what? And He was trying to direct our path to begin with,
Right.
And so I think we do that because we're fearful of the results.
Right.
And so, how does fear get in the way of living a life of influence to help others?
How does fear get in the way of living a life of influence? I think a lot of times, I know, like when I first started, I was very concerned with what other people would think. I was like concerned with, what people would think about what I was doing, and being able to, make an impact through a cell phone. Like I'm speaking every single day to people that may not even know me. And, like I dealt with, certain, online trollers, like people trying to tear me down. Like there was some, some times where people would say certain things. I'd be like, dang, like, you don't even know me, but you're saying this about, and it's like, that's one thing that I think a lot of people face early. It's like wondering what other people are going to think about what they're doing. I think that's what stops a lot of people from, being of influence. And like one thing that I think also was very, was a roadblock for me at first was perfection. Like I thought I had to be,
I agree.
Right? Like I thought I had to be, perfect. And I thought I had to give off like this certain image. And that's one thing I've grown from. Like one thing I try to express often is I'm not perfect in any type of way. I'm actually very flawed, very imperfect. And I got my go-throughs, and I got my, my things I'm constantly working on to improve myself. But that's really what people connect to. Like that's really how you're going to influence and encourage others.
Yes, and that's great because even with this podcast, right? Like I was speaking to a friend of mine yesterday, and she has a YouTube channel, and the way her camera is looking, the way her microphone, like she has a makeup artist, and and I'm like, oh my God, I'm trying to be just as perfect, and I found myself comparing myself, and I'm like, no, this is what I have. God says work with what you already have. All you have to do is give the message. Don't worry about everything else. I'll take care of the rest. And so those thoughts will try to creep into me with being perfect. If my hair's not done, if my makeup is not done, if I don't have on the right outfit, if something happens, it's like I need to let go of that because I am a perfectly imperfect person. That's just who I am. I have flaws. I have things that is just not perfect. But my ultimate goal is just to make sure that the message is delivered. The message needs to be delivered in God's way.
100%.
So I love that. How has your life experience inspired you to use your gifts to serve others?
I would say for me, like it opened my eyes a lot when I had to put down that ball.
Yes.
Like it really showed me, gave me the time to learn who else Marquis was outside of just that game. And I feel like that's one thing that I'm striving to do every day now. Just diving deeper into myself, not putting any limit, on what it is I can do, who it is I can be. And understanding that what I'm doing right now, may pivot and it may change. Like I feel like speaking is one thing that I'll be doing for a lifetime, but if God called me to do something else, then I can't ignore it, right? And I think for me, it's like understanding that there's always parallels. Like basketball, I may not be playing, but now I can then go back and encourage the people that are playing. Like now I get to go back. I recently spoke to a team that excels, Christian Academy. I spoke to their boys varsity team, and being able to go and just talk to their varsity team, get to know the players, and be able to just speak life to them. It was like, man, like I love this. Like this is a passion of mine, and I may not be playing, but I'm still connected.
Right.
And it's like, this is where God needs me.
Yes.
He needs me empowering the people
Yes.
who have the gift,
Yes.
right? Who have, like this talent
Yes.
and this potential that's just waiting to be tapped
Yes.
into. And I think like just that life experience of that heart murmur, like me pivoting from this
Yes.
dream that I thought was gonna be my one and only,
Yes.
me pivoting into this other dream
Yes.
and passion of mine.
Yes.
Yeah, so I would just say that was like one of my biggest things.
That kind of reminds me of Magic Johnson's story. I was watching The Winning Time, and him, and he was in his prime, and he was balling, and things took a turn for his health.
Right.
And he was one of the first celebrities who had caught the virus, but he became a voice for that and inspired so many people and helped so many people who were going through it. He was an inspiration to many who was going through that, and it was in secret. Right. So I think about that, how God takes a pivot in your life to do something better for others. Right. He has a different plan. So
exactly.
That's good.
And it's really about like taking the adversity that you're going through, or taking like your setback and using it as your comeback. Like your setbacks are always a setup for your comeback.
Always.
Every single time.
Always.
And it's just all about you switching that perspective.
Yes.
From focusing on the negative to focus on what can I learn from this situation, and how can I make this disadvantage my advantage. And that's like the biggest thing for me.
I agree 100%. I want to know, what is your vision and desired purpose moving forward?
I have a whole lot of them, and I know it's going to continue to grow. But I know for me right now, one of my biggest visions is just taking motivational speaking, of course, to the next level, just in terms of, the impact and like the long-term connection. Like I'm a person, I'm huge in staying connected and really being, tied to the people who want to support me, but like also like just my community. Like I see myself not only going into the schools and speaking, but also creating, a community of people who every single day I'm able to, message, talk to, speak to. And every single day it's like, I didn't just talk to you once, but I'm in your corner every step of the way. Right. So it's just me figuring out, how I can continue to further my impact, from, going and speaking in schools, but then also on that back end, really staying connected to everybody that I may have touched. And also when it comes to speaking, I really want to, one can travel to every state in the United States. I feel like there's a kid in every single state that needs, to hear my message, and that needs to hear God speak through me. So it's that, along with speaking outside the country. That's one of my biggest visions I see when it comes to speaking. And then also with my clothing brand, I can't wait to have like my storefront. Like I want to be able to create my storefront, not because I feel I need like a storefront to sell, but just so I can create those experiences. Like I'm a huge person in experiences. My brand's so much bigger than just the clothes. It's really about the community that we build in, and like the lives that we may potentially be touching. So if I can have my own storefront and be able to like invite people, create these events where we bringing out people just to spread this self-love message. Like I just see that vision for the brand, and of course it going globally. Like everybody, no matter where you at, you go see a Love Yourself hoodie.
I love it. Right. I'm gonna be wearing it.
Yes, man. We gonna get you one for sure. And then also, like with my books, just being able to, get those to as many youth as I can. Like, soon I'm gonna be releasing my book, Love Yourself More, today. And it's like a 28-day motivational read. Every day it's a message on, just loving yourself more and all about self-love. And I can't wait to release that, just to give people that daily reminder, that daily message that they can wake up and read. Just to remind themselves to prioritize them today, to love themselves today. And it doesn't have to be anything huge. Just a little more than you did yesterday. Just a little more than you did yesterday. So really just taking everything that I'm doing now to the next level, and just, impacting more people in whatever way that God needs me to.
What does living in peace look like for you?
Living in peace is me being very comfortable in myself. Not in a way where I'm comfortable and complacent in terms of I think I have it all figured out, but just in a place where I don't find my validation in anybody but God and in me. Like I feel like that's what peace is to me. Not being, moved and shifted by every trend that I see, by every opinion that somebody has of me, with me being grounded in who I am and, my morals and my principles. I think it's like one way I would define living in peace for me. And also being able to, manage my emotions. I'm going to feel how I feel. I'm human. I'm going to have my times where I'm frustrated, where I'm annoyed, where I'm angry, where I'm sad, but also being able to, right, control them and be able to just use them to my advantage, right? If I'm feeling that anger, if I'm feeling frustrated, I have to feel it. Like, I can't deny that fact.
That is true.
But also, like, controlling it, learning to express it in a different way rather than just lashing out, or rather than just, letting it stop everything I'm doing. Just like, continuing to control my emotions and just become more emotionally aware, right, of who I am. Like, that's one thing I definitely would define as like living in peace for me. Just like finding that common ground and how I can manage my emotions better.
I love it.
Yes, ma'am.
That is awesome. In conclusion, what is your message that you want to give to our viewers and listeners today?
If I could talk to whoever it is watching this video right now, my biggest thing would just be to believe in whatever you're doing with every ounce of your soul. And regardless of what today may look like, just know that there's somebody watching you, somebody looking up to you, somebody that needs you to fulfill that vision that you got, to continue to chase that dream that you got. And it may even just be yourself. Like, there's so many people that are going to be impacted, moved, changed by what you're doing. And all I ask is you don't give up on that dream. All I ask is you don't give up on yourself. All I ask is you take every challenge, every, piece of adversity that you may be dealt, and you take it to help you grow and to become a greater version of you, rather than stopping you and breaking you and stopping your purpose. Like, you have a purpose, you have a gift, you got something that you need to share with the world, and all I ask is you believe in it with every ounce of your soul, and you keep working at it every single day, regardless of the results, because you're going to make a major change in this world. And like I always say, love yourself a little extra today. Like, it don't got to be big. Just love yourself a little extra today, and every single day, regardless of anybody else's opinion of you, make sure you stand true to you, because your authentic self is what's really going to change the world.
I love that. Y'all hear that? That's some good, wise words. Marquis, thank you so much for being here today and being a guest on LIP's podcast with me, Nakia. I am confident that this is going to touch many lives today. I'm confident and I'm prayerful that God is going to have his way with this episode. I want to wish you all the best in your success. And I know God is going to do it for you, because you are serving his people and he is very happy. And I have no doubt that I am going to be the one saying, I interviewed him. He was on my podcast. I know him. So thank you so much for being here. Last thing, where can people find you?
So you can find me on social media at Real MJ Hill on every social media platform. That's RealMJHill. And if you want to check out my clothing brand, you can go to my online store. It's www.loveyaself.shop, and that's LOVEYASELF.shop. And that's where you can check out my clothing. And then if you're ever looking for a youth motivational speaker, somebody that come and impact your students, impact your staff even, you can go to my online, not my online store, you can go to my speaker's website, realmjhill.com. And that's the same thing, my Instagram, RealMJHill.com. And you can reach out to me through there as well.
Thank you so much, Marquis.
This
is awesome. Thank you.
I appreciate it. I'm honored. Thank you for the opportunity.
Of course, no problem. Yes.